Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee, and joining me is my co-host, CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, Lawrence Lewitton. Emily Parker is on break, and then there were two, Lawrence.
Yeah, you're going to be having to shoulder the burden of having to deal with me all by yourself, unfortunately.
Folks,
for you.
I met Lawrence in person for the first time the other day, for the first time since starting this show for the year. So he's real, folks. Yeah. He's not just
no, I'm kind of a phony.
Man in this giant monitor. Phony. Yeah. Let's check in on Bitcoin.
The forbidden zone, yeah.
The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XGX index currently trading at $49,031. Bitcoin is sliding down about 3.8% over the past 24 hours. Taking a look at the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index, that is at $4,292. ETH is down about 1.4%. And the new DFX, CoinDesk's DeFi index, is going up about 1.7%, trading at 447 points. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. All right, so Lawrence, what's going on with the markets? We're seeing a bit of a bounce, but a bounce in DeFi, but the top coin's not doing so well.
Yeah. No, Bitcoin had a sell-off at about 5:30 Eastern time this morning. That was when Pfizer announced that the third dose, the booster dose of their vaccine is about as effective as two doses were with the previous variants. So that's kind of good news. And good news right now, it seems, is bad news for Bitcoin, because the thinking is that, well, you know what, maybe the Fed won't be spending as much money, throwing money around, et cetera. And maybe their hiking of interest rates and tapering and hiking of interest rates might come a bit sooner than previously thought when the Omicron variant was first proposed, although that seems to not have been that scary of a variant as some of the previous ones. Right. So I think the market just kind of said, oh, wait, if there's not going to be as much money sloshing us around as we thought.
No Santa Claus rally?
Sell it.
Oh.
What's that?
All right. No Santa Claus rally?
Oh. Who knows?
Who knows? We never know in crypto.
Couple weeks left.
Let's talk more with our crypto markets guest.
The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager.
Cryptocurrency leader Nexo partnering with Fidelity Digital Assets to provide products and infrastructure for institutions. Institutional investors who use Fidelity as their custodian will have access to Nexo's products and crypto prime brokerage under one umbrella. Joining us now to discuss is Kalin Metodiev, co-founder and managing partner at Nexo. Welcome, Kalin. Thanks for joining us. So just taking a look at Bitcoin.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We'd love to have your outlook on where Bitcoin is headed.
Well, it is always difficult to tell. If there was somebody that had a clear vision on where Bitcoin would be tomorrow, next week, or next month, we definitely would like to speak to that person. What we're seeing at the moment, obviously, is a continuation of the weakness we saw at the end of last week. It seems that this move, isn't completed yet on the downward side, and perhaps if there's still a little bit of remaining leverage to be cleared off the books. So, we believe that, this is something that could, happen over the coming days. But ultimately, we're long-term believers. We believe that next year and, in the coming weeks and months, the upward move will continue. And, we hope to see finally a Bitcoin, hopefully toward the, end of the first half of 2022 reach the ultimate level of $100,000.
Yeah, Kalin, you have this deal with Fidelity, and of course, there's always this belief that the institutions are coming, just you wait, and some of them are starting to come into it now. But is it going to really be the story of 2022, or are we going to see more retail involved in Bitcoin than previously thought?
Well, the institutions are definitely coming. I can tell you that for sure. We're seeing it on a daily basis. They have been coming for the most part, very visibly during 2021, and of course, and in the latter part of 2020. But this, of course, this partnership for us is an important step. It is an important step in a coordinated sequence of many different steps that we're taking to fortify our presence in the institutional space. Everybody, probably knows us, much better for our leadership role in the retail-oriented lending area, where we have been performing since the first days of our existence. However, we have a very strong suite of institutional products and service offerings, and this partnership, again, is just another important way for us to strengthen our custodian solutions, to diversify our exposures to various providers in that space, and of course, for us, personally, is quite. It leaves quite a positive impression that we're seeing one of the most reputable names in the traditional finance space for custodian solutions join the space and become increasingly more important, and of course work with us not only on just the pure provision of custodian solutions, but at the same time also for the offering of new and innovative institutional products, three-party agreements, which are something that our institutional customers demand.
Kalin, it's really interesting that you're growing these partnerships and, landing these big deals. At the same time, the regulatory headwinds are coming in, and it's still very unclear what U.S. regulators are up to and how they will be regulating the crypto space. I understand the New York Attorney General has sent a cease and desist letter to Nexo, and I wonder, where does that stand?
Well, you're absolutely right about one thing, and that is that this situation remains unclear, not only in the U.S., but in many other jurisdictions around the world where Nexo operates. One thing about us is that we are very diligent on following the regulatory practices in place. There really isn't, any clear-cut definitions of what they are at the moment, and we have been exercising our best judgment for the most part, and for the last few years of trying to figure out what the regulators ultimately can expect of companies such as Nexo and many other companies in the CeFi space, let alone the DeFi space, obviously, which is facing even more challenges on that front. But also for us, it's just trying to again use our experience from the traditional financial markets and apply them here. So we have taken a lot of steps. We of course have very active communication with the regulators. We believe that to a large extent the situation in New York was due to just a technical situation, things that we have done and followed very well to avoid the appearance of any business operations in New York. We have geo-blocking in place. There's multiple other ways that we prevent New York citizens from working on our platform. And if there have been any individual instances, our legal and compliance teams have worked very rigorously over the last few months, and especially in light of this communication that we received, to ensure that we remain 100% compliant in all cases.
So, Kalin, about not being able to do business in New York, you mentioned that's you try to block the customers from coming in. So, in simple terms, for people at home who are watching or kind of discovering all this, what is it that you're doing to achieve the yields that you do in your crypto lending platform that makes it not legal in New York?
Well, you're probably asking this question, to one of the wrong people at Nexo. I'm a person who's at the company. My role is in charge of investments, corporate finance, institutional sales. I'm really, not the legal and compliance lead at Nexo, but of course, I'm in daily communication with these teams and with our legal and compliance lead. So, it's obviously very important that the steps we take on the business side align with the yields, as you pointed out, that we're paying. And for us, it's a quite straightforward situation. Being a retail-oriented lender and working with retail borrowers all around the world in a compliant manner in all the jurisdictions where we can do that, we continuously experience greater demand for our lending solutions, even than obviously the total supply that we can provide on any single day or week. The core of our business is sourcing liquidity from the market, where we can obtain it, whether on the retail side, on the institutional side, and lending this liquidity back to back in our very wide borrowing pipeline. So it's just obviously a typical straightforward lending business, of course, with numerous additional aspects that complete the total picture of a comprehensive financial services company with investments and various initiatives in the ecosystem.
So you purchased a broker-dealer recently. Have you heard from the SEC as to whether or not you need to have a broker-dealership in order to do your business in the U.S.? Are you in discussions with them now? Any kind of communication? And how quickly can you integrate that broker-dealership into your current business to get it going, should that be the case, should the SEC require it?
Well, again, as I said, we're in active and productive conversations with various regulators around the world. Not only on some sort of a reactive basis where we have been issued a communication and we find ourselves in a situation where we need to provide answers. We actually proactively approach multiple regulators in not only in the broker-dealer segment, but also banking regulators around the world that with which we work to expand our product and service capabilities. As far as this partnership is concerned, please don't see it only as means to achieving some sort of regulatory end game. For us, a partnership with a broker-dealer is very important because we are at the forefront of companies that aim to blend the digital asset capabilities with those that users are used to in the traditional finance sector. So we are very quickly transforming our pure digital asset company into something that we started recently calling a MetaFi company. It's basically a combination of digital asset capabilities, the new metaverse opportunities, that are being presented by this space, but also traditional financial services that will be provided, to customers in a more innovative way. So a broker-dealer would give us the ability to also add traditional securities to our platform and basically integrate all these capabilities under one roof on one hand. On the other hand, we have mentioned in various public appearances and in publications issued by Nexo that we strongly support the tokenization of assets. And that, of course, includes tokenization of securities that can be traded on our platform in the near future. And that's particularly what underlines our efforts here.
Kalin, I'm just looking at your website, and go ahead, Lawrence.
Oh, no, but it also gives you a competitive advantage compared to some of your other crypto lenders that may not have a broker-dealer. Should the SEC then say, hey, you know what, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, you'll require it. Today, we have this meeting in Congress. What do you hope to come of it with the Congress's meeting of all these crypto executives? Do you hope that they'll come up with some sort of at least a discussion in the end for how to regulate or how to deal with crypto lenders, including whether or not they will require such licenses?
I mean, again, this is what we can hope for. Our stance in such situation has been that we're always open to productive conversations. Do we know all the answers, at Nexo, and are those the answers that we can just, basically spread across the entire industry? We don't do that. Do the regulators, individually, have all, all their answers and solutions, on a predetermined basis? Perhaps not. So I think, that what is important here for us not to forget is that, yes, we're offering financial services. And as a financial services provider, we have the responsibility, the obligation, the fiduciary duty to do it in a compliant manner that preserves the interests of all investors, whether they're small retail investors or our, largest institutional clients. At the same time, as I said, for regulators, they need to be the watchdogs of the industry. They need to make sure that everybody plays by the rules, but at the same time, they also carry a very important responsibility, and that is not to stifle innovation. And I believe that, there is, we need to essentially meet in the middle. Everybody brings important points for consideration and for discussion. Hopefully, each party, sees the most important aspects of, what the other party brings to the table. And in the end, we have an optimal solution. But again, this is what we hope for.
All right, Kalin, we've got to wrap it there. But thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on your partnership with Fidelity. That was Nexo co-founder and managing partner Kalin Metodiev. Coming up, checking in on Asia and crypto infrastructure firm MoonPay, raising record funding this year at an over $3 billion valuation.
Hi, I'm Christine Lee.
Zach Seward.
I'm Michael Casey.
I'm Christy Harkin.
I'm Isaiah Jackson.
I'm Serena Lynn.
Hey, this is Will Foxley.
I'm Teresa Santos.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Lewitson.
Hi, I'm Doreen Wang.
I'm Nikhilesh Day.
Hi, I'm Kevin Worth.
My name is Naomi Brockwell.
I'm Jordan Muthra.
Hi, I'm Galen Moore.
Hi, I'm Brad Count.
I'm Pete Paschal.
Hi, I'm Jen Sanasi. You're watching.
And you are watching.
And you're watching CoinDesk TV.
Time now for the Daily Forecast, an update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Angie Lau of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Forecast, December 8th, 2021. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast News, covering all things blockchain. Well, a ban on crypto is back on the table in India. A summary of the country's long-awaited crypto bill seen by Reuters includes sweeping prohibitions on crypto-related activities, while changes to regulation are also in the cards in Australia. We're going to take a look at all of that and a whole lot more coming up. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. Let's kick off with some of the top stories coming out of Asia today. First up, a South Korean presidential candidate has spoken out in favor of crypto again. Lee Jae-myung, the ruling Democratic Party candidate, says virtual assets are already an undeniable means of transactions which Korea has to become the leader in. Lee also predicted that even if Korea issues a CBDC, other cryptocurrencies will stay relevant and coexist. Over in Australia, Treasurer Josh Frydenberg has announced sweeping new proposals aimed at updating the country's payments sector, including crypto. Now, one proposal being considered is requiring domestic crypto exchanges hold digital assets for local clients onshore, while a 10% tax break for crypto mining operations using renewable power got the knockback. He also revealed plans to move forward on a CBDC. You can find those stories and a whole lot more at forecast.news. Sticking with the crypto regulation theme, tough measures and penalties, including jail time, set to be imposed in India, that according to a draft of the country's planned crypto bill. The draft includes wide-ranging bans on crypto-related activities. Indeed, just paying for something with crypto could see you arrested without the need for a warrant. Forecast News' Monica Ghosh has more from India.
According to the draft, the government is looking to put a general prohibition on all activities by any individual on mining, generating, holding, selling, or dealing in digital currencies as a medium of exchange, store of value, and a unit of account, all characteristics of any legal tender. It says violating these rules will be a cognizable offense, meaning violators can be arrested without a warrant and held without bail. Other offences classed as cognizable in India include rape, murder, kidnapping, theft, and dowry death. A ban on crypto payments would deal a huge blow to the blockchain and NFT space since transaction fees need to be paid for with crypto. For Forecast News, I'm Monica Ghosh.
Well, it's the holiday season, and many of us are looking for that special something for ourselves or our loved ones. So what's the must-have gift of the year? Well, could that crown, ladies and gentlemen, come to rest with NFTs? Let's bring on board Duke Liu, Executive Chairman of Spores Network, a cross-chain DeFi-powered NFT marketplace, our very own NFT insider. Good to have you on the hot seat with us, Duke. Okay, we've seen Martha Stewart come up with an NFT gifting line. We have Macy's in the US creating NFTs of its Thanksgiving parade. Now, with the holiday season upon us, are electronics and clothing a thing of the past? Will we be gifting NFTs this holiday?
I think, why not? I think that we believe in physical merchandise and for physical merchandising. Martha Stewart, Macy's Day Parade items. I think that why not have digital merchandise that actually might even grow in value over time instead of depreciate in value over time, for sure. There was about 80-something thousand tickets sold for the opening day of Spider-Man as NFTs, and it was completely sold out within, I believe, minutes. And there was obviously too much demand.
And no doubt holiday sales are a big draw. Everyone is on the lookout, always has been, for those holiday deals in the physical world. But can one expect to find NFTs and digital assets on sale as well?
I think that there's a lot of value to be had in the NFT space, and very much it's a trading and sometimes an investment vehicle. So if anything, if you're doing some kind of discounting it for the holidays right now, it may be sort of a negative signaling.
Well, that's an NFT insider insight for you right there. Duke, thanks so much for joining us again. And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. For more, visit forecast.news. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.
All right, checking in on Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index right now at $49,710. Bitcoin is sliding about 2.6% for the day. The CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is now up, actually, about 0.4%, trading at $4,369. And the new DFX CoinDesk DeFi index is at 447 points, also advancing about 1.5% over the past 24 hours. All right, time now to check in with CoinDesk Global Policy Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day, who is also the editor of CoinDesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Good morning, Nick. So we've got a big hearing on deck today in Congress. What should we be watching out for?
Good morning. Yeah, the House Financial Services Committee will meet in just under an hour to discuss stablecoins and crypto trading platforms with numerous crypto CEOs and executives from platforms like Coinbase, FTX, the Stellar Foundation. It's going to be a full committee hearing. So, the thing here, I think, is to look for which specific lawmakers are asking questions and, how in depth are they going? Is it going to be, ranging from, do you think you deserve more regulation to, will there be specific questions about the nitty gritty, stablecoin reserves? Should there be stablecoin reserve requirements? Should there be, specific licensing at the federal level for exchanges that, doesn't currently exist? So that's really, what I'm going to be paying attention to is just how specific the questions get and, how many there's more than 50 members of the overall committee. So how many of that, group of 50 weighs in?
Wait, Nick, what is the point of this hearing? Is it to just explore and potentially have legislation introduced later on, or is it a grilling of the crypto industry on trial, if you will?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, the crypto industry had a pretty big year, but at the same time, we've seen a lot of activities that, folks are understandably concerned about, whether that's, the various DeFi, exploits and losses, or, we were just talking about Nexo, but we've seen a lot of companies receive cease and desists from state regulators. So I think part of the hearing is going to focus on, whether there is a federal regulatory regime that makes sense to address these concerns. And the other part is I do think we're probably going to see a lot of lawmakers who haven't otherwise been all that active in this industry get a chance to ask questions and clarify any details that they want more clarification on. So while there are quite a few lawmakers who have been talking about this for the entire year and who have held hearings of their own over the past 6 to 12 months, we might see and hear from a couple folks who have not been all that active.
So what did they expect to get out of it in the sense of what end results could we see? First of all, will Congress produce some sort of legislation out of this, or is it just sort of like a meet and greet, if you will? And what kind of regulation or what kind of result do the people from the crypto industry who are coming in front of Congress today expect to get?
So I don't think we're going to hear about any specific legislation today. I mean, it's possible some lawmakers might bring up bills. I know Representative Warren Davidson of Ohio has already tweeted about his Token Taxonomy Act, which he's mentioned a couple times and which he's introduced a couple times at this point. But I don't think we're going to see any kind of, in-depth discussion of specific legislative proposals. But it is kind of, try to figure out what the issues are, where the pain points are, and further down the line, this might lead to some kind of legislative proposals. As for the grilling, I would imagine there will probably be some level of grilling, especially given that I think the last time we had market volatility was significant market volatility was 4 days ago, and not every crypto exchange remained up the entire time. Something that FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried actually even mentioned in his opening testimony. He pointed out that while some crypto exchanges do tend to collapse under moments of peak volatility, FTX is one that he claims has not had that issue as often.
All right. Nick, we got to wrap it there. But quickly, you want to mention a hearing next week as well, right?
Yeah, so it turns out the Senate Banking Committee will be following up with a hearing on stablecoins next Tuesday. So we are by no means done with this month. To
be continued. All right, Nick, thanks
Looking
so much.
Forward.
And folks, we'll be streaming today's hearing in Congress live at 10 a.m. on CoinDesk TV, so watch out for that. That was CoinDesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation Nick Day. All right, payments infrastructure firm MoonPay raising $555 million at a $3.4 billion valuation. The funding will be used to pursue M&A opportunities, hire more people, and expand geographic coverage and payment methods. Joining us now to discuss is MoonPay Co-founder and CEO Ivan Soto-Wright. Hello there, Ivan. Thanks for joining us. So congratulations on the raise, triple unicorn status. You've told us you want to bring on 1 billion people into the crypto economy by 2030. Seems Nexo beat you out to nabbing Fidelity as a partner, though. But what is your strategy for growth?
Yeah, so really, we're just trying to make the payment experience of moving from fiat to crypto as painless and intuitive as possible. We work with some of the biggest partners in the world around Bitcoin.com, Bitcoin.org. We work with platforms like OpenSea. So a lot of our growth has been working with a number of these applications and simplifying that user journey for customers that interact with those applications.
So Ivan, does Alice really need to buy coffee from Bob using Bitcoin? It seems very clunky to do so still, despite all the innovations that have happened. Doesn't it make more sense to do these kind of larger transactions, things that would in dollar terms have a comma or two next to it, to process that faster versus going to, buying a pack of gum or cigarettes using Bitcoin?
So just to clarify in terms of what we do, so we actually make it very easy for you to move from your debit and credit card or your bank account into cryptocurrency or into an NFT. We're not yet, powering payments using crypto to crypto, although that's definitely on our roadmap for the future. We think right now it's about making it easier for people to access the crypto economy full stop and to be able to access this wide variety of decentralized applications, what we're calling Web3.
Do you see Bitcoin being used as payments, or will it continue to be a store of value as it is being used now?
Yeah, the activity that we see, at least today on MoonPay, so we power a lot of the major wallets on mobile, is a lot of people are using MoonPay to buy their first Bitcoin and holding on to their Bitcoin. I would say, less activity around actually spending it, at least today. But that could obviously change in the future. The reality is, in the United States, we do have a currency that works, but in other governments in other parts of the world, some of the financial systems do not work. And so I think there's more impetus to adopt Bitcoin in more emerging economies in a lot of cases than in places like the United States.
Do you see Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies eventually replacing the US dollar as a reserve currency of the world?
I think it's too early to tell. The U.S. has been obviously a global superpower with its dollar hegemon status. I think it's good to have challenges to the dollar. It hopefully makes competition makes everything better. So that's kind of how I look at the U.S. dollar versus Bitcoin.
See, one of your investors, Gemini, they've put some money in with you guys. What kind of a partnership are you planning with them at all, or and with any of your other investors in this recent round, or is it just sort of like, well, they put money with us to see returns, and maybe not synergies, if you will?
So Gemini is not an investor in MoonPay, just to be clear, but we do have a diverse range of investors from Co2, Tiger, Blossom Capital, Thrive Capital, and others. I think obviously with the expectation of a return, but also for us, we wanted to find partners that really understood our mission, could help us move faster. We've bootstrapped the business to date. We've been profitable, but really now, we've attracted some of the world's best partners, some of the world's best investors. Now it's about attracting the world's best talent. And so really with this raise, the idea is to be able to pull amazing talent all over the world. We've been pretty lucky and fortunate that we've been able to build this business remote, distributed. So I think you'll see a lot from us in terms of growth, in terms of headcount, and many different regions around the world. So we can provide the same great 24/7 coverage and experience to our end customers.
All right, Ivan, congratulations on the raise. Looking forward to seeing how you develop. That was MoonPay co-founder and CEO, Ivan Soto-Wright. Coming up, Jack Mallers of Strike and his mission to bring Bitcoin to El Salvador.
When we say we want to reimagine money, it turns out we're going to the heart of the matter. Imagination has always been a key part of what money is. Imagination, in the form of cultural creativity, is also something that the cryptocurrency community has in spades. And to the outsider, that can be a reason to dismiss it as frivolous, as something built on nothing. To dismiss it for these reasons, though, is to ignore that all money is imagined.
The CoinDesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
As part of CoinDesk's Most Influential, CoinDesk had the opportunity to interview one of the winners, Strike CEO Jack Mallers, whose mission to bank the unbanked has led him to spread Bitcoin adoption across El Salvador. Joining us now to discuss is CoinDesk Chief Insights columnist David Morris. Good morning there, David. So you had the opportunity to interview
Morning,
Jack.
Christine.
Good morning. What were your overall impressions of him?
Well, I think like many Bitcoiners, Jack is extremely passionate and really, feels everything that's happening as significant. And obviously what he's done is a pretty big deal. Our most influential list is not ranked, but in my book, he's pretty close to the top for this year. He's a very energetic guy. He had a lot to say and we had a great conversation.
Awesome. Let's hear the interview.
Oh, man, I'm humbled by it all. Let me tell you something. A few years ago, no one really cared about what I had to say. So I'm humbled by it all. This is exciting. I'm really proud of where this whole industry is. But all that to say, I'm a pleb. Forever a pleb, always will be a pleb. I don't think of myself as an influencer whatsoever. But I really appreciate it. It's exciting. And let's do the damn thing.
Well, so that I think is a very healthy attitude. And the one way that we saw it manifested was at Bitcoin Miami 2021. You were making the big announcement about the new policy in El Salvador, and you got very choked up. You got very emotional. So I want to start there. What was the moment like for you? What did that mean? And why was it so powerful?
Oh, man, it was a combination of a lot of stuff. First and foremost, I find Bitcoin as one of the more powerful tools in human history in instilling basic human freedom and financial inclusion. And albeit the very tiny part I played in this story, in that moment, I knew the gravity and the weight and the progressive step, in my opinion, that humanity was taking. This was one of the bigger developments in macroeconomics and in emerging markets in probably the last 250 years. And I felt the weight and the gravity of it. And it's the most important thing I've ever been a part of and likely ever will be.
What does this mean for Bitcoin? This is a big step, obviously. But what do you see kind of the implications? Does this unleash other changes for Bitcoin and adoption in the near term, medium term? What do you think the impact is for Bitcoin?
Thanks. Huge. First and foremost, Bitcoin works. I've been around long enough where that wasn't necessarily always the case. Bitcoin works. Bitcoin's always been an opt-in system. It's never been demanded of anyone to use. But if you find value in opting out of any central bank currency, any monetary policy that's imposed on you, any payment processor that you don't agree with, you can opt in to a distributed network. I mean, you can't discount the innovation that's there. And so I think we're going to start to see the network be used for things like remittance, payment processing, financial inclusion. And so I think this is the first chapter in one of the more scalable, sizable demonstrations of Bitcoin working. Mm-hmm. And I think we all know and are all familiar in this industry, if Bitcoin works, it's always been a binary bet. If Bitcoin works, it's going to change the world. It's going to dematerialize money as we know it, or it's going to zero. And I think this was the latest chapter, and it looks like this thing's going to work. It looks like it's not going to zero, and it looks like it's financial asset, and anything it touches, it's really going to swallow up and just destroy. So,
I mean, the bond in particular, and you've mentioned the IMF, the bond seems to be a significant, I would say, threat to established global financial institutions, including the World Bank. And El Salvador is also engaged in what looks like de-dollarization. So there's a certain threat to the dollar implied here. I mean, do you think this move is going to sharpen hostility to Bitcoin amongst traditional financial authorities? Is there going to be more pushback now?
Let me tell you something. I actually just presented at the IMF, and this is what I told them. You know, the G20 and the UN have a mandate of lowering the average cost of remittance and cross-border payments to 5%. And it is because we know low-wage workers, immigrants, refugees are reliant on sending money back home to smaller markets. As basic human beings, we're all trying to make the world a better place. And so I see Bitcoin as not a requirement. Bitcoin is not tattooed on my forehead. I don't have Bitcoin flowing through my veins. I'm a human being that wants to leave the world a better place than when I joined it. And I think Bitcoin is the best tool we've ever developed in allowing us to do that. And so my message to the IMF and to the World Bank when I talk to them is exactly that. It's an opt-in system, and El Salvador is using it to improve the quality of their lives. So what? If it was a hammer, if it was a nail, or if it's Bitcoin, it's just a tool. And if you have a problem with someone improving the quality of their lives and their citizens, then I have a problem with you.
You've described El Salvador as the first step for Stripe. What's the next step?
We have a lot of plans. I mean, we're going to launch in a ton more emerging markets. I think the ability to have a monetary network that's inclusive to all 8 billion people is a very powerful concept that no one's fully understood. And then I also think that there are a lot of developed market plays to be had. I think that you're talking about a monetary network that can process payments for free. There's no reason a merchant should be paying any MDR. And there's a really awesome consumer experience for us to develop. So we're trying to build the best consumer experience in the world. We want people to get access to Bitcoin for free in many ways. We want merchants to be able to accept payments from thousands of different issuers with no MDR. And we want everyone in emerging markets to have the same economic stability and opportunity that everyone here in the United States has. And so step by step, more countries, more features, more products. But we're just getting started.
All right, David, what an interview. He's quite a personality, a pleb, as he likes to say, but a fun one. Is there any sense of what the challenges ahead will be for Strike? You know, there was a lot of rah Bitcoin, but you know, Bitcoin is in itself not perfect. So did you get a sense of what challenges he'll have ahead?
There's sort of two different questions, and one is the El Salvador program itself, which, as Jack was clear about in the interview, Strike is not directly involved in the actual rollout, so making sure that the Chivo wallet and things like that work. On the other side, Strike as a company, I think that there's a question of whether there are going to be other national leaders who are interested in doing the same thing that El Salvador has done. It remains to be seen. I think it's more of a question mark than a challenge, but it'll emerge over the next, I think, probably 6 months. We'll get a clear picture of how much uptake there will be for this among people who are, not naive Bukele. There was definitely interest in other countries, but it remains to be seen whether that'll play out.
Hold on a second. There.
We hear you now.
Great. Do you think that the fact that you had Bukele as pretty much the first national leader of a country adopt Bitcoin as a currency, and you have the likes of Jack Mallers supporting it, going all out and saying what a great thing this is, that it sort of clouds the judgment about the leader himself, in terms of what they do in other policy realms? In other words, is the Bitcoin community and the people like Jack a little too enthusiastic about Bukele, perhaps even for their own good?
Well, I'll say this. I think that it is important to keep in mind that we already have a particular political context when we look at somebody like Bukele, who is taking the reins of an economy in a country that, frankly, has been abused by the United States and the Western world for decades. A lot of the political instability in their background that has led to some of the actions he's had to take is the result of interference by Western powers. And so when we look at something like Bitcoin as an alternative to being enmeshed in that system, that's an important context for some of the characterizations that have been made of him as a leader. And I don't come down clearly on one side or the other, but I do think it's a lot more complicated than the mainstream press would probably like you to believe in some cases.
All right. Well, you can watch the full interview online at CoinDesk.com, as well as the full profile to Jack Mallers of Strike. Thank you, David, so much for covering that interview for us.
Thank you both.
That was CoinDesk Chief Insights columnist David Morris. Watch First Mover for more interviews this week with most influential 2021 winners, and visit CoinDesk.com to see the complete list of 50 winners, including honorable mentions as they are unveiled this week. Time now to check in with Crypto Twitter for our tweet of the day. This one from Samson Mao, Chief Strategy Officer at Blockstream, tweeting, El Salvador Bitcoin bond first round. They have about $300 million out of $1 billion that they're aiming for. And he says these are just verbal commitments. That's it for First Mover. Thank you, Lawrence Lewitton. I'm your host, Christine Lee, and I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with All About Bitcoin. Coming up at noon is The Hash. You're watching CoinDesk TV.